So here we go live. So welcome everyone to Meshery development meeting. Today is 3rd of May. And in this meeting, we'll be talking about front end, back end, and multiple stuff related to Meshery. So if you got an item related to Meshery, whether it's a PR or an issue, feel free to toss it in the meeting minutes. I'll quickly share the link again in chat if you missed that earlier. So with that, we'll be following our weekly layfight tradition to welcome newcomers. So if you are a newcomer to the community and join this call for the first time, feel free to unmute yourself and give a quick introduction. I see two newcomers, Catherine and Ahmed. Welcome to the call. Would like to introduce?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Catherine and I'm calling in from Kenya. So I'm happy to be here. It's my first time here and I've always been interested with Layer 5 and all that they do. So I figured let me join and see what goes on. So thank you.
That's great. Fantastic. Welcome to the community, Catherine. Hope you'll enjoy and find a spot to contribute. So next up we have Ahmed. So hi Ahmed, would like to give a quick introduction?
Hi, yes, I attended one meeting, but I didn't complete. But anyway, I'm IT support engineer. I have a certificate in cloud. I am a solution architect, AWS solution architect, Azure solution architect. So I'm looking to change my career to cloud. So I want to participate on this open source project.
That's great. Awesome. Thank you for the introduction. So if I have missed someone, feel free to interrupt me and give a quick introduction in chat. So with that, I guess we are good to go with today's items. So first up, we have an announcement on new blog post on Meshery. So okay. So first up, we have an announcement on new blog post on Meshery surpassing 1,000 contributors and over 2,000 GitHub stars. So that's a very great news. And yeah, here's a quick blog post written by Layer 5 team. So everyone can quickly take a look. I'll share the link again in chat. So it's a great moment for all the contributors, maintainers, everyone here who are contributing to this particular project. You should be proud and go and share it on Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. So any maintainer or anyone would like to give a quick word on this?
Ooh, no, that's pretty. That's pretty fantastic. There are a few other interesting statistics outside of, well, the fact that there's about 4,000 folks in Slack now, and a couple thousand GitHub stars, and a little over 1,000 contributors. The way that the contributors, in this case, is measured is those that individuals that have opened pull requests or opened issues or commented on issues, those that have purely from a GitHub perspective, engaged and, participated within Meshery's development. That's a short-sighted metric, or rather there are many other ways that people contribute to the project. Actually, just being on this call is a contribution. Just being here and engaging and listening and participating, asking questions, answering questions, bringing up topics, that's all participation. It's some of those softer things are harder to quantify. There are a few other meetings or a few other projects that we hold within this community overall. And actually, we take a lot of time out to try to recognize non-code contributions but anyway, I figured I'd just speak to the metric or the measurement behind the 1,000 contributors. There are other statistics that Savio, Mr. Diaz, I want to say Savo so bad, but Savio, do you want to speak up for a moment? You want to talk about a couple of other statistics that you're working on getting exposed?
Like the stats that you had shared like a few days ago, right?
Yeah. Do you recall any of the other ones off the top of your head?
Don't remember exactly, but I guess somewhere total 36,000, I guess 32,000 total contributions, I guess. Something 2,000, 3,000, like roughly thousands of commentators and comments, I guess. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, I'm right now working on that for creating a flyer or showcasing the all contributions of on Meshery and all the repositories present on Meshery.
Nice. Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for letting me put you on the spot. I'm going to drop a link in the Zoom chat to, to a few other statistics, some of the same statistics that will create a flyer around and share. And so anyway, it's just, it's been a lot of hard work. And we're more or less just at the start of what the project is trying to accomplish. For those of you who have been paying attention to this, the version number of Meshery as a project, it's at version v0.6 something, 85, 86, something like that. But it hasn't reached the 1.0 yet. And that's largely because it's still at the beginning. And there's a lot of things that it, as a piece of management software, is seeking to do. And so, yeah, so cool. We're going to have a lot higher numbers by the time that we're done. So nice.
Cool. That's awesome. So before we go ahead with today's topic, so if you got a webcam, feel free to turn them on. It's a nice way to interact. So first up on the spot, we have a topic on connections CRUD from Azan. So Azan, are you ready to share?
Not really, Gaurav. Could you circle back to me?
Oh, sure, no issues. So next up, we have an item on REST API doc generation using ReDocly from Uzair, Subedy, Vivek, or Freedisch. So anyone would like to give an update on this?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so previously during the last meeting, we said that we needed to change the layout of the way that the reference doc is displaying from ReDocly. But let me just share something very quick. Yeah. All right. So basically, to be able to deeply kind of customize the output of the doc from ReDocly, those customization are kind of under the paid version of ReDocly. So with the open source version, you cannot do those customization like changing the layout, doing some more modification. So the only way to do that is by actually getting access to their license key. So yeah, that's it. So if just a second. I still can't find the link, but when I find the link, I will just drop it in the chat. But in that link, there is like the list of the setting that you can do with ReDocly, but all those settings are only available with the paid version of ReDocly. So yeah. That's it.
Any quick comments
Okay.
for?
Yeah, Thibaut. So today's update was you can do a lot more with the paid version. Right?
Yeah. That's it.
All right,
Yeah,
great.
that's
Yes.
it.
Yes. Well, that's I wouldn't have guessed that. That's amazing. What else? What are we going to do here? What are we going to, how are we going to move forward? Where's Uzair?
To be honest, I don't know, because I feel like with the open source version is very limited, and the customization that you are able to do is mostly like changing the font, changing the color, and so on. But yeah, that's basically that.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess the question is, what can't we get done that we are hopeful to get done with the open source version? Have you been able to successfully use like templating to swap in the version number?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I have been able to do that.
Cool. Have you been, so that's great. You've been able to change some amount of CSS. Actually, like, there's no amount of the CSS that we can't change, because that's all changeable after the fact. I think the real trick is just trying to get it to fit into the existing docs.
That's it.
And so you made progress on, so it's got a very horizontal centric layout, which doesn't seem to fit really well into the existing docs. And you were evaluating a more vertical layout.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Okay. And do you think you solved the puzzle there with the vertical layout, or are you still?
No, to solve it, that's what I was saying. Like, you need the paid version to be able to do those customization.
Okay. I bet you. All right. Will you? Yeah, if you don't mind, if you. Yep. Okay. Maybe we should follow up in Slack. There is. No doubt it's possible to switch it around to a vertical layout. But I guess we'll just need to ask ourselves how much it's worth it. It should just take CSS to do that, and that can be so. Yeah, if you don't mind sending just a copy of the most advanced format that we have today, then we can take a quick look and see if we can shuffle things around. And
okay, cool.
And this week we should make a call on whether or not we're going to continue using Swagger or shift to ReDocly. I think, so we can. But yeah, this is great. I mean, that way you can move forward either way.
Yeah.
And by the way, Thibaut, I don't know how you do it, but your bandwidth has always been pretty great, which is very helpful. So
thanks.
Anyway, yeah. Cool. Anybody else have, so is Sonali, any feedback here? Any thoughts about the tooling that we're using for REST API docs?
Yeah, I also think that it is difficult to customize it the ReDocly. If we want to go forward with that, we have to do some customized version by ourselves, I think.
Yeah.
So else we can go with Swagger like currently using.
Yeah. Yeah. It may not be. Yep. From your perspective, we're kind of at an impasse with the ability to customize, and when push comes to shove, you would probably opt for sticking with Swagger. So that makes sense. Good. Okay. And so we'll probably tie this off, and you'll send over a link to the latest index file that gets produced, Thibaut, and we'll see and we'll try to make a decision this week. We'll try to finalize. Nice. Any other comments before we go to the next?
Thanks, Tivo. So circling back to Azan. Azan, are you ready now?
Still I'm trying to get it out.
Okay. So let's move to the next item. That's by Usman. So Usman would like to give a quick update.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen.
Cool.
So here's my PR for Yash asked me to make a drop down so that we can see details of the components, my Meshmodel components. So everything is good except MD Sahil asked me that we should highlight the border of the open table for some seconds. But last night I and Lee and Abhi got together and discussed how we can revamp the whole UI. So I can take let me take you through what we discussed. I have started working on it. So what Lee suggested was that we can have 3 boxes like these, and we can show the count of each of the models, components, and relationships. So when a user clicks on these, we can actually navigate them to the other page where we can occupy this whole space, so so it looks good to the eyes, like in this table format. So I didn't work on that feature that MD Sahil asked me. I have started working on this whole revamping of the UI. So if anyone has suggestions on how we can improve it even better, so you can let me know. And also, I couldn't find an API that gives me relationship across all models.
Yeah, Usman, say that last part again, the relationship across all models.
Yeah, so I can find APIs that can return me all the models, components across all models, but not relationships across all models. I can fetch results for a single relationship for a specific model, but not across all models.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So that's one blocker. Another blocker that I have is this part, third part. So Liu suggested that we should handle this components duplicacy at the API level. So that is yet to be done on the backend.
Yep, good. Yeah, I think it is actually done. So Harkarat's on the call, and I don't know that Ashish is, but those 2 gentlemen should be able to give some details about how the deduplication is performed on the back end currently. Cool, good. And Harkarat is not prepared to do that now because he's gonna have to go read up on it. Ashish isn't here. He implemented that deduplication, but Harkarat is familiar with it. So hopefully Mr. Singh will chime in at the end of the call or in Slack to let you know how that deduplication already works. For the other item that you were mentioning about the convenience by which you can get the aggregate count of relationships across all registered models, right now you would have to traverse each individual model. So if there were 150 models registered, you'd have to go to, that'd be quite a few REST calls.
Yep.
Sounds like if you would, sounds like it's a good enhancement to file as a GitHub issue so that a gopher can jump in and augment the existing API. There is an API endpoints spreadsheet that tracks the API, each individual endpoint inside the API. And is the sheet that we use sort of to design the API? Subsequently, we end up producing API docs like the one that Thibaut was just sharing, but I think it's a little bit easier to reason over looking at the spreadsheet. So I'll share it in the Zoom chat as well. But
Right.
you could annotate that spreadsheet and just highlight the fact that one of the use cases here is to get at some of these aggregate details. And that we should open up a GitHub issue to have somebody take that on.
Right. So I will open up the issue after this meeting.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Unless Pranav has an alternative. So Pranav, this is a REST API that's being used. Do you think that your comment applies in this case?
Yeah, actually, I was saying that in case we don't have that functionality, then we can like create a new function which runs an SQL query, which does an aggregate query, basically uses the count function of SQL, and then it will automatically give us all the models we want.
Nice. This brings a smile to my face because as Usman opens up that issue after the call, it's like, you might be just the individual to pick up that issue. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you're right. What you had expressed, potentially more than, I mean, like, if we were to open up the API spreadsheet, it's something of a standard feature that would be fairly nice to have across most of Meshery's resources. So just so that we can look at something other than my ugly mug, if we were to bring up the docs.meshery.io, so Usman, if you were to visit the docs and you were to visit the current REST API docs, which relates back to what Thibaut was sharing earlier. Thibaut was looking at how to enhance the presentation of the REST API docs. Within the current documentation, there is a collection of Meshmodel resources. So there's a /API/Meshmodel. And under Meshmodel, there are models, components, and relationships, and they're kind of spelled out here. Again, I think it's easier to digest mentally when looking at a spreadsheet. But what would be a nice feature that would be somewhat pervasive across each of the different API resources would be, well, there's a bunch of things that are nice to have common to every API. So the ability to do a search, like do a string search for a model of a certain name, great, or a category of a certain name. And that's true of other API resources like Meshery designs and filters, and there's a long list. To have pagination supported for each of the resources. Like there's just a standard set substrate of functionality that should be required and ubiquitous across every API resource. One of those I would propose is something of an aggregate count for that resource. Is just as either included by default or in any get query, or maybe to at least at the top level, like if you were to do a get query at API Meshmodel model, that's a top level query that doesn't specify a specific model. It just says, get me all the models. Speaking of, Abhi, haven't we shifted from a singular format of these words to a pluralized format?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So this is something that, okay, this is horrific. This bothers me very much, which is we don't, and I'm going to conflate this whole issue by saying, Antonette, there are some things, and Azan, there are some things that we don't mandate as part of every build, which is we don't mandate a regeneration of API documentations, which should be mandatory every time that we're doing a merge, at least to the extent that Golang has changed, right? The same thing for error codes. I think we have error codes that are published that are like 2 years old or a year old. Like, whoa. That should be mandatory, that anytime that we're merging a piece of Golang, that we have the Meshkit error utils should be run and should be published. So those things are easy to overlook if they're not built into, they're not mandatory as part of the process. So side note, I think that is something we should take up and make sure happens. Some compulsory portions of the build. Coming back here though, yeah, I would propose that there's probably a standard set of, search, paginate, aggregate counts that could happen at top level resources at least. So Usman, as you open up that GitHub issue, that'll be not only helpful for the Meshmodel APIs, but also potentially for some of the other APIs.
Yeah, sure. I would mention this too. So, so should I close this PR and work on the new revamp of the UI, or should this be merged?
That's a great question. Normally, I would say
this is the UI.
Yeah. Perhaps, as long as it's bug-free, merge. If we end up with bugs, then it ends up being more trouble than it's worth since you're re-implementing. So if you stand behind your work, let's merge it. If you're not quite sure, then maybe we should hold off until you do the re-implementation. But so I'll let you think about it. Just signal on
the. I think there won't be a bug, but if this feature can be implemented this week, then I don't think we should merge it within this week, because at last we are going to shift to the other UI.
Okay. Thanks for the update, Usman. I'll share my screen again. So I'll ask again. So Azan, are you ready, or should we cover one more topic?
I'll cover one more.
Okay, cool. So let's move to Sahil's topic on Kubernetes context registration information. So Sahil would like to give an update on this.
Yes, this PR is done by from my side. Needs review. Actually, I can't test it locally because I don't have cluster configuration file. I tried to do it with my local Kubernetes cluster file, but wasn't getting good results. That's why I want someone to review it.
Yeah, for cluster, we can get you an access to the cluster. No issues about that. So if you could explain about what's happening in the PR so others can get a context of it.
Basically, what was happening before this, if we don't, currently what's happening, if we apply a kubeconfig file to register our cluster, then if Kubernetes cluster get registered successfully, then we were getting a message, Kubernetes cluster got successfully registered. But if Kubernetes cluster wasn't getting successfully registered, so we weren't getting any type of message in the front end, right? So yeah. So if we wanted to check what happened to our registration process, so we needed to check logs. That's why this PR collects all the logs and shows all the results in the front end. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah. So Sahil, are you saying that there isn't enough information for the UI to, like, there isn't enough data coming back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Related to warning or errors.
Oh, I see. Okay. But okay, good. And that might be Okay, warning or errors specific to this event.
Yeah,
The
registration process.
okay, yeah, great. So it's a good investigation. I mean, I believe that that's probably true, and it doesn't necessarily take a lot to return to annotate the event with either an info, an error, or a success. And I noticed that Muhammad Rafe is on today. And so Muhammad, this might be an item that you could assist with. I don't think that this is an area, Muhammad, that you've worked within just yet, but I think you would find it quite straightforward. And so, yeah, if that's something you might want to dig into, we can explain it a little bit further. It just has to deal with Meshery connecting to Kubernetes clusters and either successfully establishing a connection or not being successful. When it attempts to connect, it just needs to label whether it has been successful or not successful.
Yeah.
By the way, Sahil, how did you test this PR? Like the information is getting back. How are you testing it?
I tested it by commenting out some code. So that's why it was working from my side perfectly.
Okay, you uploaded the Kubernetes config, then it showed some information, heard the response to UI. So I think, are you comfortable with making changes in UI as well?
Yes.
Did you have any prior knowledge of React and Java? Okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay. I think then just to completely wrap this up, you can also make the changes. I mean, you know better which changes are required in the UI right now, because there is some change in response structure, or the new event buffer is sending some new informations. So you might take a look there as well if you have time.
Yeah, so just for clarification, Sahil is a front end focused individual, and is highlighting that as he's trying to characterize the responses of the Kubernetes cluster connection events, that at least from what he's seeing, it looks like those events don't necessarily carry the severity level associated, like info, success, or whatever, or error. And so he's looking to collaborate with someone potentially like Muhammad to have them enhance the backend to annotate the event with the appropriate severity level. And so, yeah, nice. That makes sense. Yeah. So this is one of those kind of bothersome, it's a little bit of a bothersome user experience. In order for Meshery to do some of the things that it does really well, you want to connect Meshery to one or more Kubernetes clusters. And so you'll upload your kube config to Meshery. It will look at your kube config, and if your config has one or more Kubernetes contexts or Kubernetes clusters listed, Meshery will go through and attempt to establish a connect or talk to or connect to each of them. And maybe you have 5 clusters and 2 of them are down. And so it's able to connect to 3, but it should report back that, hey, I saw a total of 5, was able to connect to 3 successfully, and these 2, it couldn't. And so it would just send back 5 messages, 3 successes or 3 infos or 3 successes or what have you, and 2 failures or 2 infos, depending upon how we want to treat that type of a failure. But at least giving the user back just confirmation that it saw 5, and so, yeah, I mostly said all this for Muhammad Rafe's benefit, because he's been kind of put on the spot with like a suggestion that maybe he could help here on the back end. So, yeah, great.
Okay.
Good update, Sahil.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sahil.
Sahil, Sahil, the last point of feedback, if I can move forward with is that whenever you make a PR, if it is a backend change, so you can provide the response structure as well. Like what just the what you have changed. What's the new data structure that is being returned and all. So just helps in the PR review and all.
Okay, I will.
All right. So moving ahead, or I should circling back. Azan, are you ready now?
Now now you have went ahead and done it. Now let me present like something else, because this is I'm unable to hit this for some reason. Let me present something else instead. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. So this compose helpers is finally merged in Meshkit. So now the correct way of doing anything compose related. Sorry about the background noise. So the correct way of doing anything like exec Docker compose up or PS or any other command is using Meshkit helpers. Okay. And I've also created another PR for this. I should have done in the same PR, but I realized when I started implementing in Meshery, the compose helpers. But I have added, sorry. Yeah, I have added one for creating a Docker API client from the existing config. We previously were creating from environment variables, which was creating some confusing issues because of their interaction with Docker context. We won't be having those issues anymore because of this helper function. I can see the happy smile on Lee's face. Yeah, so that's yeah, that's about this. We are going to stop using now exec for Docker and Docker Compose. We are going to be using Meshkit helpers. If anyone has any questions regarding this, then you can just pop up. And Gaurav, you can like circle back to me again in a couple of after a couple of items. I might be ready with the connections code.
Good.
Azan,
these
yeah, go ahead, Abhi.
Yeah, I just had the question, like the curiosity. These context helpers and what you have added right here would be used in the Meshery CTL, or it is a core thing that would be used by your server as well. Like whenever we upload the compose, like what's the surface area that is hitting?
It can be used by the server as well. Okay, but I don't think there is any exec in server right now.
Okay. I was just thinking about utility. I mean, the support that we have where we can upload a Docker compose file, and it will be converted to Kubernetes manifest, which later will be converted to the pattern file format or design file format that we know. Okay, I thought like it would be. I mean, I thought like it would have been using Docker exec, but I think that's another library, compose itself, that is.
Yeah, that
used to convert
interaction is
compose to
not related to this, I think.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so no more questions for Azan then. We'll move to next item. So next item is from me about Jest based unit test for utility function. So currently in MesheryUI, we have Cypress end-to-end test as well as integration test, but we were lacking unit testing. So I added a couple of unit tests using Jest, which is a simple framework for testing JavaScript. So we have a folder here in, let me just share this thing. So we have a couple of utility function that's written in MesheryUI, but we don't have tests for that. So I have created a couple of tests just for representation purpose. So it will be test using Jest. I'll quickly show. So it will just run test, and it will be running all these two test cases that I've added in the test utils folder. So whenever you write any global function or add a utility function, make sure to add a test for it. And I have also added the CI workflow, but it's currently failing. So I'll be taking a look on that. So other than that, if anyone has any comment, feedback, feel free to unmute and ask now.
Yeah, so can you guys say a little bit about how this effort can parlays with the existing Cypress tests that are used?
Yeah. So Cypress test, the current test, it's for the whole component, not for just the unit test casing. So the Jest will be specific for the global utility functions. It's not testing the all the API requests and other things that we are testing for the whole file or for the whole component page that is being rendered.
Yeah, in other words, Gaurav is saying like it is just testing a unit function. Yeah.
Oh, thank you much. Yep, got it.
Okay then. So if no one has more comments, let's move to next item. That's by Antonette on Storybook. So Antonette would like to explain.
Yes, so we were able to move the Storybook outside of UI directory. And so if you have been struggling or didn't know where to start or anything like that, pertaining to creating a Storybook component, now you can do it in this particular directory. So the directory is called Storybook, and it's pretty much a brand new Nets.js app, 13, all very recent, using Material UI version 5. And all of the components that I had at first it's also been moved into as well. So if you would like to create new components, you can use that, and you don't have to worry about being impacted by conflicting packages in the previous directory. So that's the update on that part. And the next thing that I would like to ask to see if anybody would like to help with that, just let me know. And I already updated the open issue on the components that I would like to see be added. And if you want to contribute, just let me know in the comment, let me know in Slack, and I can add your name to the component that you would like to work on, and then we will, progress from there.
So Antonette, I sent you my avatar story. I selected you my avatar story. So if you can check it, and if it's correct, I can work on the other components like paper drawer and tabs too.
Sure.
But if
yes.
Yeah. So by the way, so that we were Sahil, who was presenting earlier, was working on a regular expression for an email input field. As you think about that, Antonette, is there a place for something like that here? Or is that not quite fit here?
I mean, yes, you can. If you want to create forms, text field, and you want to test what it does, yes, you can. We would just need to add some packages for testing framework. You can mock data. You can do all of that. That's why I moved it out of the UI directory, because it was conflicting with the existing packages that we have. So yes, you can do that.
Okay, and okay. And so a large portion of the value that this effort delivers to the project is well, there's kind of a few related things. It's like promotion of reuse. So it becomes a component library, like a reusable set of components that will ultimately drive up quality, drive up consistency, and speed by which development is done, because there's a standard set to choose from, and they've been curated for the project specifically. And so, okay. Yeah, there's related to the email validate, there's there's a couple of input fields that the project uses to type in someone's email address and to verify that it is an email address. And that's not a super difficult thing unto its own, but there are other input fields but we would like for that input field to also be something of a type ahead. And so it strikes me that there's potentially a need for a user lookup component or a people picker component. And so, yeah, I wonder if that's true. I mean, I wonder if that's I know that that's true, that we have that need. I don't know if in your mind, if something like that is a good fit for this initiative.
I mean, yes, it is, but we don't know until we try. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
In concept it is, but okay. All right.
Yeah, it sounds good. It's a really good idea, but yeah. And I'll be interested to see like how it all works out. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can go crazy. It's actually using the Net.js app. So it's not a replica of what we currently have because of the different version, but you can do whatever. You can create a component, a story of a page that you want to show. So that would give you freedom to do that. So yeah, you can work on that as well.
Nice. Okay. And that's something that I think slipped by me before. But it's the 6th or so checkbox where it says ensure that Storybook can wire up and support MesheryUI version 4 or version 5, or to the theme provider of either of those two. And so it's probably worth you repeating maybe for the 3rd time, I suppose, that this effort is, you're designing it in such a way that you're trying to ensure that not only that it's compatible with MesheryUI version 4, or that this is implemented in such a way that people can design stories or design components for the current version of MesheryUI that the project uses, but at the same time affords space for working on components for the MUI v5. Is that right? Or
I need to change that line. Last time on a few calls ago, I did mention I did have trouble trying to set up the version 4, partly because as I mentioned, Net.js 12 and 13, there's like a breaking API in between them, as also with React with 17 to 18. So I need to change that line. Just to make it very clear that if you are going to be making components, it would be for version 5. You can also, take an existing component, whatever it is that you were working on, you can have it converted. This would just help, later on when you get to really ramp up to migrate to version 5, then you already have the components in place, and then we just, go ahead and replace it. But I'm sorry to say I couldn't get the version 4. I mean, I could, but it's very hackety, so it's just very hackety. Yeah.
okay. Oh, that clarifies that makes sense. The decision as well to lean into v5. So okay.
Yes, but there is a theme, just very generic. Let me see. I gotta look in the directory real quick. Where did I put it? So I moved the theme should be in the stories directory. As to not conflict with anything outside of that. And so it's similar to what we currently have, but I just have it as a what do you call it? But yes, there's already a theme in place. So If you want to change it, it's okay. If you want to test new colors, it's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Antonette, for the update. So moving next, we have two updates from Abhi. Abhi, would like to share?
Yeah, let me share this. Yes. Sorry. Yeah, so first update is need for central UI utility tool. Actually, this is being covered for a moment right now. Since Antonette is also discussing with the help of Storybook, this is something that we can achieve. But there is still something more we have to, research, because we have different UI components and all these UI should look as consistent as possible. And as Lee was suggesting, like some fields would have autocomplete, some will not. And maintaining that kind of consistency across all the UIs using the same API to call different things would help us making everything consistent in nature. And yeah, less error prone, and a central place where everything can go wrong or everything can go right, and making the changes would help every UI that we have. So that was the call for it. And I was just looking out why a storybook is needed. So what I get is that you can use with the storybook, you can test your UI or design your UI in isolation. So by isolation, it means that you don't need to spin up your own server next, etc. But the storybook itself is very enough to design your own component and check it life cycle, build stories around it, like what would happen if there is no data, empty data, or whatever, right? So we may just use our existing effort done by Antonette in this direction, and it could help us in building the UI interface that we would require to have. Yeah, that was the first item. Given there is no comments, I'll move to second item. So I recently added the WASM support in MesheryUI, and it would be extensible to Meshery extensions as well. That we can just run any Go file within the JavaScript and from the browser itself without need of any external server, and that's what it is. So there is some notes that I have written, like why it is important and what's the problem that we had, that it is and it will be maybe solving. And there is some playground link as well, where you can go to /WASM playground page on the localhost 9081, and you will be able to see everything running through WebAssembly. So that was the second update.
Meh. Yeah, big deal.
Yeah, I have discussed it 1-2 times.
No, okay. I don't know if everybody else sort of got this, but in a very nonchalant way, I think Abhi just sort of introduced the game-changing piece of architecture. Yeah. And, now we can execute, WASM programs, and, also you can, it's been made so it's extensible. If you want to, hot load a WASM program, that there's consideration for that. And so it's like the most understated.
Yeah, I think hot loading is also supported. Without you even restarting the server, you will be able to hot reload and see like what changes it has bring you when you are onto the development server of next in MesheryUI. So that's one of the feature that we just told.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so for my part, like that, this is the tip of the iceberg on, I hope that it is the tip of the iceberg, and that none of what you've written here survives in like a couple of months or something. And by that, I mean that we expand upon it so much that it's like, yeah, it gets rewritten a couple of times just because, many more of the use cases get better articulated, and we start to, so one of the things that we would ideally do is, we have this articulated in a couple of different GitHub issues, but the first use case, and the first, like, ideally super small use case for where we can invoke a piece of this and have it be implicated in a central user flow, such that the inclusion and execution of a WebAssembly program becomes really part and parcel to everyday use of Meshery. Anyway, we should brainstorm what that initial super small use case is. So, yeah, kudos, Abhi. I think this took you all of a day and a half or something. I mean, this is,
there was no direct tutorial with Next.js. Actually, with the JavaScript, the things are much more simpler. With the Next.js, like there is added complexity due to Webpack and all. So yeah, it took some time. Not that much you're pointing it out, but yeah.
That's great. That's cool. Wow.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Abhi. So we still have a minute left. So Shivam would like to share about moving to dark mode by default for all the websites. Shivam, I think, yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah. So first of all, I wanted to point out an issue that there was an issue that these icons are overflowing on the catalog website. So I made a PR for this, and that will fix the issue. And secondly, we have dark theme supported for all the websites, mainly Meshery.io as well as layer5.io. So we are planning to move towards default dark mode for both the websites. And so I myself was trying to check if there were any bugs left before we were moving on. So some of the bugs are being worked on by contributors, and so most of the bugs have already been resolved. So I think we are ready to shift to dark mode for both the websites. And yeah, that's all I want to discuss.
Well, again, sort of another underwhelming statement of like, yeah, a significant change, a pervasive change. Shivam, do you know, so I think we collectively, all of us maintain, I think it's about 9 UIs, 9 sites. I think actually, I think it's more than that because there's a couple that, but anyway, point is there's a lot of these, and that's because we have a large appetite for, opening up projects and seeing them go forth. It would be interesting, if you don't mind, it would be interesting to know of the list of user interfaces that we have, how many of them are dark mode by default versus white mode or light mode by default now. And so that might be something, it might be a point of research, just because I don't, if you don't mind, like responding in Slack or something later.
Okay, yeah, I'll check that and I'll respond to that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, that's, but so, yeah, just as a call out for everyone on the call, because everyone, including your 12-year-old little brother or your 12-year-old son or whatever, everybody, including your grandma, can find bugs on websites like this, where we just switch from, one color scheme to the next, it is highly likely that there's a couple of misses, a couple of things that were overlooked. And so if you are perusing, in this case, Meshery.io, and I think Shivam was saying layer5.io as well, if you're perusing the site and you find something that's not very high contrast, so it's kind of difficult to read, or something that is eye-gougingly bright, or please crack open an issue on the respective repos or mention it in the website's channel in Slack, because because there's likely to be a bug or two somewhere. But yeah, kudos to, we were talking about 1,000 contributors to Meshery earlier. The code contributors on Meshery is like 550, somewhere around there. And that's about as many as have contributed to the layer5.io website as well, which is sort of mind-boggling to me. But it's a highly curated site, very well taken care of. As a matter of fact, just yesterday, there was a new repo opened for some of the work that Randy Lau is doing and Nikhil Latha on how it is that trailing backslashes are being taken care of on that site. So just, well, I'm almost embarrassed for Meshery to say that this particular project, this site, which is quite important because it represents Meshery and all the other projects as well, that it has almost as many contributors. So it's a big deal. So that's a great announcement, Shivam. Nice.
All right. Thanks, Shivam. So with that, we are 4 minutes over, and we had a great call today. Lots of good items discussed. So thank you all for joining today. We'll meet you next week, same time, same place. Bye all.
Bye-bye.